Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki. Welcome to Chapter 5 in Business 223, Principles of Management offered by the College of Lake County. You're either taking me on a full online class or a hybrid class. Today we're going to be talking about managing diversity. From a managerial perspective, it is the manager, what you've gotten out of the reading, that will make sure that diversity works within your team. You are the mentor, you're the coach, you're the person that's going to bring the new individual in, you're the person most likely who's going to be hiring a diverse individual. And when we talk about diversity, most of us, when we look at diversity, we're always looking at ethical kind of diversity, color of skin or religion or anything else. But diversity goes a lot further than that, because even within every different group, there are various subgroups. If I would look in a business organization as a manager, I have people that are engineers, and within those engineers, I got civil engineers, I have mechanical engineers, and I have electrical engineers, and they all look at it. They're similar, but still look at it a different viewpoint. So if I look how a marketing person, I would communicate to a marketing individual versus how I would communicate to an engineer. Marketing is more into the abstract. An engineer, I have to start communicating and dealing with that individual more very logical, very rational, because they're building stuff, they have to see the whole picture. Marketing, we're looking at an abstract, a picture, or something that we want to bring in. We're more creative and everything else. I'm not saying that engineers aren't creative, but it's just a different type of way to managing an individual. Okay, so what do we have next? We have this one, and so let's go into our next thing. So we're going to talk about what is diversity, types of diversity, age, gender, race, ethical imperative, creating, sustaining diversity. That's the biggest thing. If I look at diversity, why is it so important? When you look at the reading, and when we go on later on and we talk about it, diversity is not affirmative action. Diversity is good business sense. It makes sense from a managerial perspective that the people who I serve, my customer base, are representative in my management. If you look at Walmart, Walmart's very diversified. You go into Walmart and the people on the floor, the salespeople, the retail individuals, the people that are helping, very diversified. You find from every culture, from disability and non-disability, anything you name it, you have it. So you would think that Walmart's very diversified. When we go further up, what you're going to find out, the glass ceiling, they're invisible. Walmart's diversified at the low end, but when you're looking at, so they do mirror, but when you look at the middle management and the upper management, the diversity isn't really there. It leans more to either more men than women, for lack of better words. I'm not even talking about cultural. Okay, so diversity, when you really look at it from a managerial perspective, has to start from the top, but it has to be at all levels of manager. So you have the same kind of percentage, the same kind of ratio. This helps managers as a whole to think of it, and it helps me as a manager to understand, because there's a lot to manage a diverse workforce, different ideas, different culture. But if I get them all to start thinking and listening to each other, they can't stop me, because I come up with creative ideas. I look at different ways I could take care of what's upsetting my customer base, because I got people from that customer base. I got people that from different customer base. And now when I'm making a project and everything else, or when I'm managing and I'm coming up with ideas and everything else, I have the whole picture. Okay, so I'm going to look at that one. And diversity is about workforce differences. Remember, we're all different. If you look at this picture, you got small, big, fat, small, tall, skinny, more hair, less hair. That's what makes us unique. But what I don't want people to, so we could generalize. We generalize by age. We're different kind. Like I'm supposed to be a baby boomer. Someone's supposed to be Generation Y. But if you look at the generation, generalizing is fine. It kind of gives us a general idea. People kind of will act that way in that kind of a culture. The thing that you have to learn is stereotyping. Do not stereotyping. Stereotyping means it's the truth. No matter what happens, all Polish people like duck's blood, and they do not all like duck's blood. But that's something, some do, but I don't, and other people don't. Okay, so you remember, so stereotyping means that you put that person, and he or she is always going to act the same way. Or generalizing, this gives me a general idea what the population was acceptable, was not, understanding that each one of us is very unique and everything else. Okay, now, can anyone share an example of this in the class? Okay, if I look at the beginning, when you're doing your homework assignment within Blackboard, there's a real short clip talking about, what setting are you? Are you a penguin or are you a peacock? And all they're saying is the peacock put in a resume and he or she tried to fit in with the penguins. At first he accepted them because creative, different ideas, right? After a while, they wanted to conform, and that's paid mostly with a lot of companies. They'll bring in the culture, but if you're the only one peacock with all these penguins, eventually you're going to want to fit in. Because when you learn in a motivation, what you learn in Introduction to Business, we're social beings. We like to socialize, so we want to fit in. So we may adjust. What you want to do is make sure we always keep the peacock available, or have more peacocks in there. After a while, what you'll have is penguins, peacocks, all types of different birds. So if you look at that real short clip that I have in here, it's about 4 minutes. It's an interesting, it's real, it just makes you think. It opens up your mind. So that's what I would do before I would start reading it. Okay, who is among you, talk about diversity, by definition is everyone. Now, if I look at affinity groups, what that basically means, when I bring a person that's diverse, let's see if I'm in an area that's predominantly most of my clientele are just, or the management I'm doing, and for lack of better words, let's say they're Hispanic. So they all kind of have a lot of cultural similarity. Now I bring someone from India, or I bring someone from Mexico. I mean, not Mexico, from Asia, from China, Japan. Even though they're diverse, different than what I would consider as a Polish individual, I mean, that group still has to accept that person from the Asian culture into that. Now, how am I going to bring them in? I either bring someone else in there that has some acquaintances or has some relationship. Even if they don't, I try to come in there as a mentor, find out, hey, we're bringing another individual in. He's from China, he's from Japan, he's from Korea, or whatever. And now here's the little difference. You have a lot of similarities. You're all working together, but here's what you have to do. Because remember, the biggest thing about when you bring someone else in, we don't know how to deal or how to approach an individual without upsetting them, or they're different. Okay? And they're not really different. We're all alike. It's just that our facial, or the way we come across, is a lot different. Just like you're taking this class here. This is an online class. Some people, or the way I teach. You may like the way I present, or other people, they will like more of a very structured, the old school way of presenting. But as you look at the schools changing because of the clientele, the students' body, they're more active, they're more into YouTube, they're more very, have technology at their fingertips, they're very, they don't like the quiet. I'm not saying, so they want more of a visual effect. So I, as an instructor, have to adjust to my student body, okay? Now, if I look at different diversity, age, and this one, the author did a pretty good job saying that the workforce is getting older. The current median age is 36, which is kind of, usually was like about 25 or something. Now, 65 or older projected to grow 3 times as fast the next 40 years. Now, just because I'm 65 or anything else, because we live longer, does not necessarily mean that I should be out of a job. I mean, if I'm within that age group. But here's the stereotype in 65. We think people at that age, you can't learn the old school, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, which is, I don't want to put that way, but that's just mental, stereotypical, bias idea a lot of managers may have. 65 individual come with a lot of experience. They're more calmer. They could teach your younger generation Y individuals, but you have to bring them together. So they'll teach them how to be more respectful, how to, through experience, where the younger generation, if I bring them together, so you got experience, knowledge, and what about this, there's a different way of thinking and processing, where you would have the younger individual will teach the 65 or over, for lack of better words, the technology on there. And there's also this thing that a 65-year-old will get sicker. They have more sick days, and that's a fallacy. Or they get hurt more. They don't get hurt. The accident rate is, if anything else, it's lower than the younger individual. Because I think at that age you have a little more mature. The only difference is when a person that's 65 or older or gets hurt, it takes them longer to recuperate versus someone that's in their 20s. Okay, so that's the only difference. So if we do get hurt, it takes us longer. But since we realize that it takes us longer to get hurt, we're a little bit more cautious and use a little more common sense, and we just don't jump the gun for anything else. Okay, and the next one is gender. 53% are male and 46% are female. It's almost equally, but it's still not equal when you look at the managerial thing. It's still more men than there are women in that position. And it could be a lot of different variables. But eventually, if you look at a lot of management classes and everything else, you do see more women. In college, there's a higher percentage of women than there are men. All right, and that's something to know about. On average, women still earns 80% less than men. And we'll talk about that. And when you're looking at that equal pay, equal worth, or comparative pay, because I'm a woman. If I look at that, there's a big issue. You know, it's not just look. If I'm a plumber and my counterpart is a female, she's a plumber, we get the same pay. The issue where it comes into when you look at comparable award, a plumber, whether male or female, may make $30 an hour, or someone that's a woman and she's working as a nurse or a medical assistant may only make $15 an hour. So when you look at this 80% of what men earn, you're looking at all job skills together. And the issue with comparable work, the problem that you're having is if society wants to pay a plumber more than I would want to pay someone that's doing my x-ray or a medical technician, that's a free market. So that's the issue in there. You know, it's not the pay for pay. I mean, there are some organizations that the titles change a little bit. I'm a senior title, but I'm doing the same work. There could be some of that glass ceiling or this average what a woman makes. But those are issues that are being resolved over and over time. And as more women come into the managerial position, they will take care of those issues because they'll say, hey, this isn't right, this is unethical, or you have progressive managers as myself or other individuals, like in this class, you come out to be very progressive. If the individuals work, you pay everyone equally for the same amount of work and the same amount of tasks if they have the same skills and everything else on there. Now the other thing is race and ethnicity, American, you know, African American, American Indian, Asian, Hispanic, and everything else. So if you look at it, you can see the population shift. You're seeing, I think, the biggest percentage that the author had is the Hispanic is going up. Now if I look at, now here's another thing I just want you to think about. When I'm looking at African American, just because a person has a dark complexion and has a feature of an African American, does not necessarily an African. Doesn't necessarily make him an African American. My son-in-law, he basically is, I would say, oh, you're an African American. No, I'm born in Jamaica. I am Jamaican. But even though he has the facial and the characteristics of an African American, just like some of you say, well, you're American, you put me to slavery or whatever. I'm just making that, just a contrast. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm European. I was born in Germany. I had nothing to do with this over here. Do you see what I mean? So you can't look at a person's facial or his characteristics because that's to be stereotyping, okay? And there's something that you have the bias and perception that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so in this one is the chart showing that the Hispanic is basically the fastest growing in the United States. Religion, again, religion. A lot of times, the issue with religion in business, when I was taking courses similar to what you're doing, we never talked about religion. Religion is something that's personal. Now, religion is a big thing, and that has a lot to do with 9/1 and a lot of religious freedom and everything else that's going on with different religions. But even with religions, you can't look at one religion. Let's say I'm Christian, so you can say, "Oh, he's a born-again Christian." No, I'm not a born-again. I may be a born-again Christian. I'm a Catholic. Oh, he's a Catholic. He's always praying to statue. No, remember, even within religion. Even whether I'm a Muslim, whether I'm a Jewish, you could say I'm a traditional, I'm an Orthodox Jew. It doesn't make a difference because even within the religion, we have a perception of what we think that religion, that individual, the characteristics, how he or she should react. And where do we get that perception? We never met a Jewish person, we never met a Muslim, talked to them face to face, or we never met a Chinese, or we never met anyone different. I mean, you know, a Hindu or anything else. We will have our own bias from what we see through the media, or what we see in the news media, or what we see in a movie. So until we meet that individual and we say, hey, my understanding or my bias is wrong, I do the adjustment. So as a manager, I try to understand that there is some bias, and I try to overcome that within, as a mentor within the team, and also when I bring the new individual in, okay? And sexual orientation, you know, social economic and other types of diversity. The diversity includes everyone. And basically what you're saying, what you want to understand is we all have to have some kind of general idea. We're exposed to it, just like with ethics. There's no way around. We're bombarded. We already have some kind of a preconception of what we think an individual will act like. When you come to the classroom, you expect the instructor to be respectable, knowledgeable, and everything else, because you have that perception of what an instructor should be at. When you go to your mosque or if you go to your synagogue, or if you go to your church, you have a certain a perception how that the preacher, the imam, or the rabbi, or the priest, or the minister should be acting. But sometimes you have someone in a different within those religious mainframes, you have subgroups, and they may not act what we would consider the norm. So you have to look at it. What is my baseline? Once I have the baseline, once I meet an individual, if I'm not sure, look at the internet, look at other people, look at their website, try to understand, look at documentaries, and then you'll change your perception. Then you say, hey, they're just like I am. They eat, they sleep, they want the best for their family. So really, we are people inside. We just look different. It's just like I have a different kind of a make a look. You have a lot of people that drive a car. You can't just because he has a Mercedes doesn't mean that person is very rich or snobby. He just has some lucky things or made a good deal on a car. All right. Be true to yourself while working to learn to understand others. Okay, now you have, when we talked about the extension from the ethics, you have distributive justice and procedural justice. This is basically the common law that works within business when you take business law 1 and 2. So fair raise and everything else, this should be the standard across. If you're doing the same type of work and everything else, I would treat this same individual. I'm not looking at your skin or color. And look, like I would hire a lot of individuals. Sometimes I'll look at individuals just because your hair is blue or you've got tattoos all over. I have to look at as manager, you are packaged differently. What's inside? Could you perform the task? Could you perform the service? So I'm not looking at the subjective, the first impression of you. I'm looking, what could you actually do? When you talk to an individual, you find out they're people just like me. They're very calm, they're very respectful, and they'll say, man, it's not what I thought you'd be. Why? Because you have a preconditioned bias, whether you like it or not, in there. There's an assessment that looks at bias by what they do. They'll flash different pictures and see how you would, what do you call it, for lack of better words, look at this person. Would he do harm? Would you like this person? Would you not like this person? And you go real quickly and you see how you automatically flash. We're doing a lot this week, so I'm not going to push that. This week is a very busy week. We got an exam, we have a review, we have a paper due, so I'm not going to push it on this week, all right? But that is a good assessment. Somebody wants it, I can always present that to you. Sustainability within a diverse organization. Like anything else, if I bring someone else in, if I want this culture, I teach a class called organizational behavior. Organizational behavior basically is the culture of another organization. If you want to change the culture of an organization, you have to bring new individuals in. But at the same time, you have to maintain that culture that's existing till the new comes in. People who come from a different country, when they come in here, they pick up a lot of the cultural things they like, or for lack of better words, that they pick up when they go back to their culture, and then, to go back home, if they go back to their host country, and then they basically add that into their culture. So you could tell people who are global individuals, for lack of better word, because they pick up a little bit from every culture. That makes the person unique, and then it makes them more unique. But it makes that person the type of individual I want. I don't want the same individual. I want people thinking differently. And remember, most organizations and managers, you want to represent your customer base, that you're at all levels. If I have 30% that are Hispanics, I should have 30% managers that are Hispanic. I should at least have 30% of what do you call it? Employees that are in there. Look, if I have six, but some areas you can't really keep that cultural balance, because even though overall the company's looking at a whole, but the area I'm in, I may be in, like, say, in a Maywood area. A Maywood area could be Hispanic and African or African American, for lack of better words. Okay, so if you're in that area, I may have trouble getting someone from Asia, Asian or Chinese into that, because there's not too many in that area. So the courts understand that, but I'm doing my best effort, okay? So, but I'm still mirroring there. So I'm mirroring each individual location I'm at, but I also look at the whole company. Are we mirroring my consumer, my base, my base fully, okay? Hang on a second. Okay, so now, challenge and discrimination, behavioral remarks, silence tolerated. If you hear someone that's saying a derogatory remark, if you don't say anything, you're condoning it. As a manager, you have to take action right away. If you see someone is saying it's a derogatory remark, if they're doing some kind of sexual harassment, it should be taken care of. You cannot wait on that, okay? Perception, we talked about this, is what I see. I mean, if I look at this chart with perception, two different objects, they basically are. Depends what the view you're looking at it, okay? So we have that schema abstract, stereotypes. We talked about stereotypes. We talked about bias. A lot of times we like to associate with people that are similar to us. It's just our human nature, okay? So look at social status. We like people who are the same social status, okay? And you could tell this with the social status. Let me go in here. When I go into social status, when you had the presidential election, when you looked at Romney trying to be one of the guys, he just couldn't fit in because he didn't understand the everyday person. He was at a different level. Not that Mr. President Obama is poor. He's already but he came up to the ranks coming up there. All right. So, but then Mr. Romney, there's nothing wrong with that. He was just born into a little bit more a different social class, and you have the same different class systems. India has different class systems. So when you come over here, you have a lot of things that you have to do that you're looking at the person to diversify, but that's the challenge of being a manager. How to bring everyone together. And I really think that's the best thing. So if I look at this hostile work environment, remember, if I do sexual favors, quad pro quo, that's against the law. When we did the last week we did ethics and we did the internet exercise. When I looked at the internet exercise, there basically somebody sending pornography over. That could be offensive joke. This could be basically a sexual harassment case against the management, against the company, and against all individual. This could be bad publicity, bad PR, and could cost me money and my reputation and everything else. So if I see something going wrong, once I brought them in, I have to resolve it. I have to go through the process, and to resolve it. And the individual still made me happy. He could file the agreement. But what the court system would do, did management, the managers, take action to resolve this issue? And then there may be no what do you call it, judgment against me because I didn't realize it. It happened. I responded to it. I took corrective action. I responded. I have policies and places in there. So there's nothing, things may happen, but that's just something that happens with part of management depending on employees. Okay? So it's hard to understand, and we're almost here. I'm at 22 minutes. Make sure for the exam and everything else, always look at the last slide and all the PowerPoints that's provided, and make sure you understand these definitions, and most likely you'll see them within the exam, the first quiz that's coming up. Again, my name is Dr. George Mochocki. Welcome to Business 223, Principles of Management offered online by the College of Lake County, or in a hybrid. It's half online and half face-to-face. Have a nice day. Bye.